So let's go over the most basic anti-gravity technology. Really, it's all pretty basic. So anytime you get something rotating, right? This could be a piece of metal or a fluid, like mercury is really good. Any sort of flywheel, any sort of gyroscope, even electrical. You could get plasma rotating sort of, but you really want the stuff to have a ton of mass, right? So for anti-gravity technology, your primary drivers, I think, are always going to be just like the most, whatever the greatest amount of mass you can fit into your gyroscope. And so when you have a gyroscope going, or when you have something rotating and capable of gimbaling, or capable of moving like that, you can surf off of the rotational motion. And by surfing, you can sail. So you can angle into the rotation of the rotating energy, like the mercury or the gyroscope, the flywheel, and you can get it. You can push off of it, right? And so you can get 2 or 3 of these things and basically tack them, angle the rotation into each other so that they are constantly sailing, and it converts the mechanical rotational energy into lift. And so it looks like anti-gravity. You're still having to convert the energy, to run the gyroscope. Like as you push into the gyroscope in the right way, it's gonna want to slow it down, because you're gonna be converting rotational energy into gravitational energy, changing the position of the gyroscope. And so that's kind of hard to do without a computer. But if you have a computer or something that's capable of auto linking the multiple gyroscopes together, or if you're using a liquid or a fluidic gyroscope, you wouldn't need multiple gyroscopes. It could push off of itself, since it can kind of fluidically respond. And then if you've got electricity running through that liquid mercury and that field's going off, you can obviously tack or sail on that field. And so it's basically the anti-gravity stuff is you're all looking at things of getting a tremendous amount of rotational inertia, and then coming up with another device where you're kind of sailing on that inertia. And the gyroscope is also there's a sensitivity to it, there's an art to it, there's a balance to it where it just makes sense. And it's a little bit just some people can't spin these up. If you give them this stuff, they can't push into the gyroscope. There's a lack of skill, right? The same thing with a bicycle. You could be oh, well, this bicycle is a magical warp transportation device, and be how? And be it doesn't. I've proven it scientifically. It doesn't work. There's no way. Or it's like sailing, right? So this anti-gravity stuff is like surfing or like sailing, and so a surfboard is just a plank of wood. It's not going to break the laws of physics. The same thing with a sailboat, right? That's why if you get you have these different components, the gyroscope, the vortex, or other components, and it's a little bit like the sail, the rudder, and the buoyancy of a sailboat. And if you put those things together, you can actually go against the wind. You can go against the current in a sailboat. And so that's exactly what's going on with anti-gravity technology. You don't have to make a warp bubble or think of things in some weird. That's the biggest psyop, is everyone's trying to say that the higher technology, like the warp technology, requires like cold fusion and electrogravitic propulsion and stuff like that. And it doesn't require anything more complex than like a sailboat. You just need a couple of different components. Like one component has to provide buoyancy within the field. Another component, tractions into the fluidic part, like the gyroscope, like the keel, and then you have a sail. And so if you combine those things intelligently, you can actually get like a lift effect that's going counter to the direction of the prevailing currents, which in our case would be gravity. In the example of a sailboat, if you have the wind and the currents are going against you, that's the equivalent of gravity. And so you can use the sailboat as an example to understand how gravity can be surmounted using a combination of relatively simple technologies: gyroscopes, flywheels, electrical motors, solenoids, capacitors, coils, things that are capable of interacting with a magnetic field. So yeah, you can have the gyroscope generating a tremendous amount of current, right? Where most people build spinning electrical engine things with the goal of like, I just want to make the highest voltage and the most amps. And it's like a more elegant technology would be like, oh, I want the gyroscope to be, generating a gyroscopic effect and generating current and interacting with electromagnetic field, not just for the numbers, but for the for the sensitivity. And then once all that sensitivity is combined, you can get these effects that are like sailing, which is breaking the laws of physics. If you don't understand what's happening, sailing breaks the laws of physics in a way that's not absurd. It's not like, right, there's other ways to break the laws of physics, like, oh, make the rocket engine, make the fusion propulsion craft, make the jet ski, right? Those also break the laws of physics, but the sailboat breaks the laws of physics like at a much gentler, more integrated level. And so there's opportunities to create technology like that for flying machines and other technologies. There are lower tech, like higher intelligence versions of all the technology that we're using today that we could switch over to. Because it's like the people are coming in and trying to entice everybody with the destructive shortcut technology that lets you use the technology but remain a retard. And so since you remain a retard, they just enslave you. So all the people offering the crazy tech without requiring that demanding that everybody upgrades their understanding, their balance, their sensitivity, right? Like, what's the difference between an obstacle and a booby trap and a skateboard, right? The people with the higher sensitivity turn the skateboard into oh my gosh, they're like, what? Right? And so that's what lets that technology flourish. The technology of the skateboard does not flourish without the sensitivity of the operator. And so there's all sorts of different machines and stuff like that if we upgraded our sensitivity and our skill in that area, the same way that a yogi or an athlete or a skateboarder or a dancer does, then you can, make a ton of food, make an airplane, fly, like talk to each other long distances, have energy, refrigerate food, right? All of that stuff's possible. even make weaponry, right? You can make ridiculous weaponry. Ridiculous weaponry. That's probably the main reason they don't want it out. Just like even it just, you know, it kind of evens the playing field a little bit. Like how bee stings is kind of like a ridiculous weaponry for their size. You know, just the equivalent of like more advanced spears and clubs. Psychic defense. But you can, the gyroscope is actually, if I can use the gyroscope to interact with the fabric of time. You know, so there's all sorts of applications. Yeah, with just a couple of gyroscopic rotational linkages, you can definitely couple an object's vertical location to a drive shaft or to a motor, to the rotational center of a Mercury vortex or a Mercury gyroscope. Yeah, especially with a Mercury gyroscope. So if you make a Mercury gyroscope, super easy to connect your to cause acceleration in any direction. So you could accelerate against gravity. And so that means, like, just by how we're conceptualizing it right now, it's kind of no duh, but this, you can feel it with your mind. Like, this is dragging on space-time, just like everything does as if it's moving through a pool. But this gyroscope is a relatively extreme example that's moving in a predictable enough way that I can, like, just look at it and feel it very closely. Normally, if something was going this fast, I wouldn't be able to interact with it. It would just go by me or through me or hit me, right? But with a gyroscope, you can interact with something moving very fast, and so you can see how movement, it drags on time, drags on space-time.